Aloha everyone, this is Leimomi Keliikuli, intuitive online mindset coach, and I'm so excited to talk with April Beach. She's an amazing business strategist. And so I wanted to kind of like share with you guys some amazing tips and people's stories, how they got to six figures, multiple six figures, or even seven figures, how they went on their journey and how they got into their genius. So why don't you share a little bit more about you, like who you are, what you do, what made you be in your master genius at what you do today?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. So I'll try to be as efficient as I possibly can. I'm an entrepreneur developer. I'm a mentor and a coach for female entrepreneurs that are strategically developing companies designed around their life. But I've always been an entrepreneur. So I'm the daughter of lifestyle entrepreneurs. I have never worked in corporate. I grew up watching my mom and my stepdad build companies for lifestyle design. And, even at a really young age, I learned that you can choose what you want your lifestyle to look like, and then you can build your business around that. And my parents did it multiple times. And, it was always around sports and activities and travel. For example, like when my stepdad wanted to surf more, we opened up surf shops in Kauai. And so I lived there during the summertime when I was younger, and California in the winter. And when we wanted to play beach volleyball more, we opened up beach volleyball stores in Santa Barbara. And when we wanted to travel around California, we would build furniture and cruise around arts and craft shows. So I always knew, like I remember being in third grade and having my mom pull up in the Jeep with the top down, and my sister and I would be in school, and my mom would be like blasting music, and she'd be like, "Come on guys, let's get out of school. It's a good beach day." And I remember looking at my friends going, "Man, I'm so glad that my parents don't work a 9-to-5 job. It's an awesome beach day that, my mom's going to come and pick me up because the waves are up. And so I remember that as a really young girl, and just thinking that this is for sure, didn't have any idea what it would look like, but this is for sure how I'm going to, design my life for my family. So it started really, really young. And then, this is also, there's so many hard lessons. There's actually so much pain along the way, because it seems, perfect up until this point. But the pain, I think, is an important part of what helps refine us and define us. And so when I was almost 14, my mom decided that she just didn't like that life anymore. And so she left. And so I actually moved out on my own when I was almost 14 years old. And so I had this time where everything was perfect. I was like living the dream, and it didn't matter. I was 10. I totally knew that, I was living the dream. And then I was by myself in a studio apartment in San Luis Obispo, California, on Christmas Eve, almost 14 years old. And I was like, why am I here? But, the good thing about that is, when this type of thing happens, when 14 years old, my ego was like so big because I was a teenager, I thought I knew everything. So it was okay. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure this out. And I actually did. By the time I ended up graduating high school early. I didn't take my GED, but I took like extra credits so I could get my diploma. And by the time I was 18, I was traveling around Costa Rica, surfing with friends and camping. And by the time I was 19, I was doing the same thing around the Caribbean. And by the time I was 21, I was just kind of doing miscellaneous jobs. By the time I was 21, I got like my first big girl business coaching job. I had a company approach me, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I have no idea why they even asked me to do this, still to this day. It was super crazy. But I had a company approach me and ask me to help them develop like an integrative medicine business model. And so I started traveling around the country and changing the business model of their health and wellness centers. And that's really how I officially got into business coaching. So see, it's a really long story. Hopefully I can sell that a bit.
That's amazing how you took something that was like so powerful, and then you utilizing that now in what you do, but also just that painful moment of having to like be self-responsible, you again changed it into something really positive, and then led you on to this new journey to be able to do what you do now, just which most people could have taken that and be totally disempowered and totally get into drugs or other kind of crazy things, right? But instead you took it into something as a positive thing and then kept going with it, and then of course it grew into your own business and everything else that you do now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a real big advocate for what I call burning the picket fence, designing life on our terms. And just because, and I have days now, but I tell them this all the time, like, just because something is done a certain way doesn't mean that that's the right way for you. And so looking at the way people are supposed to do things, I've always been the one where I was kind of going against the grain in that, saying, I can build really profitable businesses and I don't have to have my MBA. As a matter of fact, by the time I was 25, I had so much more entrepreneur experience than, people coming out of college at that point in time. And so it's really scary sometimes when you don't know what you're doing. But I think that, for those of your listeners and watchers, when you're going through this process and you're not really sure what you're doing, that's actually the best place to be, because we're just sponges and we want to do it well and we want to learn and we want to make an impact and we want to create positive change in other people's lives and, starting with our own. And so, it's a really cool place to be at, actually not knowing what you're doing, but knowing that you will figure it out no matter what. Does that make sense?
Totally, because that's kind of what happened to me when I went into spirituality. Actually, went the other way around, growing and helping, as a spiritual monk, and I had like no idea what I was stepping into, but I felt like it was so aligned at the moment, and then of course it didn't at the end. But we never know where we're going to end up, at the end product, but it will give you so many skills to get to, this point of fulfilling your biggest dreams if you just allow yourself to go on that path. And it sounded like all of those things were setting up for you to actually design what you do now, which is what you said, the Sweet Life System. So just share with us a little bit more about what's that Sweet Life System that you created.
Yeah. So there were a lot of steps between there. So now I've owned 3 different companies, and you know, and I actually currently own 2 companies. One, they're both business strategy and development companies. But in the process, I've coached, gosh, probably well over 4,000 females, women entrepreneurs, to develop and design and launch their business. And I realized something. It was kind of one of these cool things where you don't realize it until after you've been doing it for a while. It's not like there was this starting point and all of a sudden you do this. It's one of these times where you stop and you look back and you're like, wow, okay, that's what we've been doing this whole time. And that's what happened with the Sweet Life Entrepreneur System. So I developed this system, again, not even realizing, about 8 years ago, but I really started talking about it and teaching it 3-4 years ago. And the reason why, so let's share that first, because I think that's the most important part. The reason why I think this system is important is because there's a life of entrepreneurship. And we as entrepreneurs go through this life cycle, in most cases, multiple times, because we'll do one thing and then we'll come up with a new idea and we'll do around this multiple times. But the problem with growth, the problem with, it's a beautiful problem, but it's a terrible problem too, with women, is that we are so creative and we have so many ideas and we have so many things that we want to do that we have trouble really focusing on the one thing, the one most powerful thing that has to be done right now, because our heart is already on the next step. And so in the process, in working with so many entrepreneurs and myself going through this, I realized, okay, there is a life cycle of what I call life first entrepreneurship. And that's what the Sweet Life System is. And the Sweet Life System is 5 phases. And in these 5 phases, you actually start at phase 1, and some people don't get all the way through to phase 5. They will actually stop and then even go back to the beginning with a new company and a new idea. And the reason for that is because not everybody is interested in what phase 5 is, and I'll explain that in a minute. But, ultimately, the most important part of this is understanding what phase you're in. And then based on what phase you're in, you know exactly what you should be focusing on, learning according to your unique business and your unique life plan. So phase 1, and, we'll talk about this too. People can figure out what phase there is, and I'll share a link. It's just a little self-assessment they can take. But phase 1 is actually totally skipped over all the time by people starting a business, not because they aren't in it, but because they don't mindfully realize they're in it. So I was like, okay, we have to have this first phase because people need to know. Phase 1 is all about finding your purpose and creating your plan. And what I'm an advocate for and what I teach is first developing a business model that aligns with your life. And of course, now that you know my story, this goes back to when I was like 8, developing a business model that aligns with your life, and then developing the offer and actually launching the company to get there. So many people see other people doing things. They'll be like, oh my gosh, everybody's launching an online course, so I need to launch an online course. Or everybody's doing a retreat, so I need to do a retreat. But they don't have any, they haven't given themselves permission to actually stop and be like, well, what would that make my life look like? And so phase 1 is all about figuring out what your purpose is. Most people honestly don't know it yet. You have to take a few steps into the process to start trusting yourself and listening to yourself. But really, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your time to look like? How much time do you want to take off? Do you have kids like we do? I take off 3 months every year. I don't work. And really figuring out what that looks like for you. Most people are in phase 1 when they're still working a full-time job, or when they are kind of launching that side hustle, or when they're just thinking through the process, oh my gosh, I kind of want to be an entrepreneur. And some of the things that they should be doing are, okay, great. What is that going to look like for you? And then reverse engineering that in the process. So phase 1 is all about purpose. Phase 2 is launch. And, most people, like I was saying, just go, okay, well, I'll launch. So phase 2, actually, you should be in phase 2 and launch for a good deal of time, a good amount of time. And phase 2 is all about focusing on developing your first offer and what it is that you need to do and who your ideal clients are and why they need you and how that aligns with, who you are, who you want to be intentionally as a leader in your space, and building the, all the technical stuff that most creative entrepreneurs hate, like the funnels and the lead magnets and the list building. That's all phase 2. And then phase 3 is scaling. It's growing. And you can't move on to phase 3 until you've done a really good job in phase 2. And so you'll go through the process of launching your business, but then instead of doing all these other 1,000 things, you need to stay there for a while and test it. Because, and this is going to hurt coming from an entrepreneur coach, and I don't think this is said enough either. Business is a hypothesis. Everything that you're doing when you launch your business is an educated guess that it's going to work for you and it's going to work for your clients. And it's a little, not very comfortable to hear that, but it's true. And so you have to stay in phase 2 to keep testing your hypothesis until you get it right. You will get it right if you stay there and you're really intentional and focused. And then phase 3 is scaling and moving on. And that's when, my clients are moving into the phase where they want to, serve more people. That could be at that point in time, launching online courses, launching a retreat, increasing the revenue streams into their company, building their team, expanding their message, expanding their brand, really walking into that place of influence in their space and in their niche. And clients stay in phase 3 for years, like years. You can be there for a really, really long time. And you usually stay in phase 3 until you hit the financial and lifestyle benchmarks that you set out for yourself back in phase 1 in the beginning. And you probably have changed your mind 100 times, and that's going to happen, and that's fine too. And then phase 4 is scaling back to a 20-hour work week. So I'm a 20-hour work week business coach. And, sometimes that's 30 hours a week for my clients, but all of us, so everybody in my community, we either have kids or we are really active in sports and travel. And so building a 20-hour work week with big sections of time off is really important. So phase 4 is how to scale to a 20-hour work week. And then phase 5 is all about philanthropy. I'm a nonprofit. I'm an environmental activist and human rights activist, and I'm also a nonprofit founder. And so I work with clients who want to go on to phase 5, and it doesn't matter if you work with me or not. You can still go through this, the whole steps of the phases. So phase 5 is all about giving more of your time, giving your money. You don't have to create a nonprofit organization. You can, really start giving back and making an impact in areas that are close to your heart, and in most cases have absolutely nothing to do with your business. But, like I was saying, going back through, most entrepreneurs get to phase 4 and then they kind of get bored there. They're like, okay, 20-hour work week. They usually start writing books in phase 4, doing more speaking in phase 4, and really starting to walk into what's almost phase 5, that those passion projects. And then they're like, okay, I'm totally bored. My company's on autopilot. I have a team that's still running there at phase 3. I'm going to go back and do something new. And they go back and start the whole cycle again. So they could be in 2 separate places in the Sweet Life Entrepreneur System at the same time. Does that make sense?
I love that how you've broken down like each phase, because we literally go through each of that as an entrepreneur. But I don't think people, when they first start off, they like have no idea that there's actually phases and stages, and that you have to grow into each stage. And then when you're actually ready to launch a new thing, like a new actual business, right? Like how you have 3 different kinds of companies that you have right now, right? It took time to develop each part of it, and you have to honor. It's like like when you have a baby, like you have to honor the stages of your baby growing up. You can't expect your little 1-year-old to do what 5-year-olds do, right? But we have to learn that process, and you have to test it too. They have to like grow up, and all the team members and all the different things that you have to do with it, and actually getting to the point where you can have that philanthropy type of work, right? On top of what you've already established.
Yeah, and the thing is that we want to do so good. I mean, we don't mean to like jump phases real fast, but we want to do so well. And when you're starting your new business, there's so much on the line, and there's so much personally at stake to make it work. And so what happens is, entrepreneurs just try to do everything because they're just trying to do a good job. Nobody's trying to be overwhelmed. Nobody's trying to, be completely distracted and doing 1,000 things at once. It's because they don't know what they should be doing. And that's why I created this Sweet Life Entrepreneur System, is to help them know, okay, here you are. In order to move to the next phase, these are the things that you need to focus on and fix and work. And it's really different, and it works with any business model. I'm not a product development coach. So, if you're launching a hairbrush company or something like that, I can't say this is going to, really apply to you. It's more for service-based entrepreneurs and coaches and purpose-driven companies that provide information and services to other people. But the reality is that it's once you know what you should be doing, it is like this weight off of you, and you're like, oh my gosh. Then you can go and take that course you really wanted to take. Maybe you saw the emails coming in about it, and you're like, oh my gosh, do I need a copy course? Or, oh my gosh, do I need an Instagram marketing course? Well, the reason why you don't know the answer to that and probably spend so much money on things that don't apply to where you are right now is because people don't know what phase that they're in. So once you know what phase you're in, then you can confidently, buy coaching. You can confidently get tools. You can confidently, work on your own development personally, or your team's development, and say, okay, this is a good investment because now I'm ready to, grow or scale in this particular way. And so I think that system, overall is just a really powerful way to help entrepreneurs understand exactly what you should be focusing on, what you should be spending your money on, what's a distraction, But the reason why it works is because we're not good at putting things on the shelf that we really, really want to do. Well, I can't say we. I am totally not good. Like when I have an idea, I will drop everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do this right now. I'm so excited about it. And usually like my team is like the last people to hear about it because I've been doing it for 3 weeks and didn't tell anybody. And so, this rule, like I even have to get myself in check with this and be like, oh, okay, this really doesn't apply right now to what we're doing. But it's okay because as long as I know, okay, this is sitting on the shelf waiting for me to grab when I'm here at this place. It's not going anywhere. I'm not going to forget it. I'm not going to lose it. I even have files on my computer for things that align in, different phases for the different companies I own. I'm like, okay, this is a phase 4 thing, April. You're going to save this under the file in your computer, so when you're there, you won't forget it. And I think that gives me peace and knowing that I'm not going to lose my ideas and that that they're not going anywhere. I don't think I'd actually do it unless I had a system to shelf things safely.
Yeah, I know how many ideas that people get during the course of the day, and then you kind of like lose track of like what you're actually supposed to be focusing on, and
Right.
and sticking to your strategy to the end.
Right.
I think like we become so unproductive if we just don't know where to stick it. And just knowing whatever phase it is in at the moment, I think is really important for people to like realize. And it goes the same also with soul alignment and what I teach as well with my Being Elohi method and system. You got to go through each stage of soul alignment and actually honor the phase of where you're at right now, activating your superpower, revamping your business to your soul, and then you can actually get to 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, and fulfill your mission and like expand into a bigger scale. But if you don't do the first level of it, actually aligning the right way, you're going to end up all misaligned. You're going to get lots of haters. You're going to get like lots of chaotic situations in your life. Like all of those are showing up because it's showing you where you are at what phase you are in your life and your business.
Yeah. And it's so cool when I meet other entrepreneurs like you, because like your soul alignment, I don't know all about your program, but like that is a perfect thing that people should be working on in phase 1. And what happens, which is so interesting, is that a lot of entrepreneurs, honestly, by the time they get to me, by the time they're like, okay, I've been doing this, I'm really tired, I need help, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't sit right with me, it doesn't align with what I want my life to look like, they're usually in phase 3. And they go back and it's kind of like it's this recorrective time. We're like, you know what? That's all good. You have to still keep making money because you can't just shut off the faucet, financially where you are. I totally get that. But in the meantime, we're going to go back to phase 1. What do you want this to look like? Why are you working your ass off for something that in the end is never going to look like the life that you wanted? And the reason why is because they're doing it just because everybody else is doing it. And just because there's 1,000 business coaches out there now, saying that, oh my gosh, you got to, do this and this and this and this, which is fine, but doesn't mean it's fine for you or me or, and so it's really important, I think, for people to go through that process that you're saying in phase 1, even if they've already built profitable businesses. That's what you got to keep going through the system and hitting things according to what it is that, you want and you need. And I love that. I love that you're saying that because that's exactly what I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you're talking about scaling, it's really important to come back to the core of what your superpower is, what you're supposed to be aligning to every day. Because when you get to actually what you're talking about, the stage, I think maybe around the stage 3 that you're talking about, we tend to get overworked. We don't know how to revamp our life and business to our lifestyle, where we don't know like how to scale at all, like doing more, right? Like doing, how do I say it? But like make more money, but do less, right? Because you're at that stage where you have to do less. Like how can you be in your genius if you're doing like all of your opt-ins and all of your PDFs that you got to make? Like it's just not your genius, right? So
Right.
you have to come back to the basics and go, hey, like where did I start and what's my why and where do I need to go next? And in order to get to that next stage, which sounds like the fourth stage that you're talking about, like expanding, getting, impacting more people. You can't impact more people if you're like already tired and exhausted and, not
Right.
managing everything correctly.
Yeah, and like all of us, and I've written a couple books in for when I launched my other company, gosh, like back in 2008, 2009, and and I even find myself in this place. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 3 books in me that I need to start writing like right now, and I'm so excited to get there. I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to start doing more speaking. But then I'm just like, gosh, but I can't do that yet. I can't do that yet because there are some strategic things that we need to work through that aren't running like the well-oiled machine they need to be running like in phase 3. And so what I do for myself, because, we need to stay in the phases, but the reality is that we're human and we're creative. And I also really believe we need to, feed into that kind of like out of control, mad time. I don't know. Maybe it's me just because I don't like fitting in a box very well. And so usually I will have a block time during my week. It's always at the end of the week though, where I'm like, okay, you can do whatever you want. Do you want to outline that, that first chapter of whatever? Yeah, you get to work on that. Or, do you want to, start reaching out to people that you want to speak at their events? Yes, totally. Go ahead and do that. So, I give myself that amount of time to still do those things, but it's in a way that's safe for me, that I'm not going to derail myself in that process. And I think that even having a system, even being in a phase of the Sweet Life system and knowing what you're working on, I do think it's also important to give yourself kind of that out of the box, not as structured time as well. And it gives you an idea as far as where you're going, and then you kind of stop that. And if you're doing a great job and your business is at the place and you're meeting financial benchmarks, but you're still in phase 3, then get somebody else on board, get a virtual assistant on board saying, hey, listen, we're not there yet, but I want you to go research, the 10 best events that you think I would be great at speaking at next year, or, whatever it is. And you can start having people in your team delegate things, walking into greater impact, which is more phase 4. But like I have one business that, is just totally running on autopilot. I'm through phase 5 and had, founded my nonprofit, and it's just go. I mean, I don't even have to do anything with it. I probably work maybe an hour a week on that company. And then, and then the Sweet Life company that we're talking through today is really entrepreneur coaching and consulting for lifestyle entrepreneurs. We find ourselves, and we've been doing it, gosh, since 2013 now. So around 5 years, and we still teeter in between phases 3 and 4. So, I'm not ready to get into more activism. I'm not ready to, create another nonprofit. I don't even know if I want to do that, but I am ready to start moving into phase 4. And so it's kind of cool, for myself as a coach going through the phases. And then I get it, when I work with my clients, I'm like, you can't do this right now, but I'm not telling you something I'm not doing myself. And I can prove to you that, I've built multiple profitable companies on this process, and clients have done the same thing. And this is what it looks like. And you're going to be okay, I promise. And I think that's an important part of it too, is just kind of being in the trenches with my clients and understanding that, is freeing. Sorry, my dog's just walked in here. As freeing as it is, as freeing as it is to have a system, that we need to give ourselves an opportunity to kind of think outside of the box and think creatively too. I have the sun glare on me here. So there we go.
We can totally talk about this all day. Like, I love talking about
space. I hope it helps. I mean, I hope it helps. We actually give the system away for free. It's not like a big expensive program, because I am an activist, and I won't even say purpose. Yeah, I guess it's purpose-driven entrepreneur. We invite people to join the Sweet Life system and to get all of the lessons of exactly what you should be working on. There's even checklists of what you should be working on in each phase. And we donate, you just give a donation, and we give 100% of the donations from that to the nonprofit organizations that our company supports. So, there is a system, and you guys can take the quiz and you can get in there and find out where you are. And then you can find out exactly what you should be working on and do really great things by getting access to that and giving money back we support 4 different nonprofit organizations, and it all goes to them. So the whole thing about the Sweet Life system is I want to I think there would be so much freedom in sharing the message about this, because imagine the impacts that could be made across the board for entrepreneurship if women actually walked in the phase that they were in. Imagine how awesome and powerful everybody would be. So that's why we give it away for free. But we do try to do good by it as well.
Awesome.
There we go. I'll stand on my tippy toes. There we go. That was better.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your amazing knowledge. I think just people hearing about the system and just listening to what you just shared with us is so powerful, because most people don't even know this, don't even look at it from that perspective that you're talking about, like designing your life first around what you really truly want to create, rather than like the business part of it, because we tend to go like, oh, I just want to launch this and I want to give this to offer, but we really haven't even looked at how is that going to affect everything else in your life, right? And I'm sure when everybody comes to you, they're like, yeah, I want to launch this. But then you're like, well, how many hours can you actually work? Well, I still have a full-time job, right? We don't even think about those things. We think about what we're going to actually do in the end. But really, you have to look at what it does for our lifestyle. That's way, way more important than anything else, right?
Yes, by far more important. And what's really interesting is, just to speak to that real quick, and then, I know you'll probably want to wrap things up, but there are some times in our life where we design things because we want to, and we feel like we want to travel. There are other times in our life where we have to have it designed a certain way. I have 2 kids with special medical needs. And so it just so happened that I knew how to do this ahead of time, and that, I really did have to pivot, and my boys are great now. They're really healthy, but my youngest was really, really sick. And life looked different. And so having the knowledge of how to design your life first and then design a company around it. It's not all about world traveling. It's not all about surfing. It's not all about even philanthropy. It really starts at home. And I just want to encourage people, there's so much out there like, oh, life design. Oh, you're going to travel. Oh, you're going to do all these things. There are some really, really serious family dynamics that you might want to, build your company around as well. And it's certainly possible. So it's not all fun and games, but it all is incredibly important. And so I just want to encourage women in understanding the phases, so that whatever it is, if you have a sick kid like I did, or if you want to travel like I did, or, whatever. I mean, like you guys are traveling around whatever, where are you guys now? You're in Thailand now or something. So there's always a different reason. There are always good reasons. But I think that knowledge is power, and that's how you're going to be successful doing that.
Mm-hmm, totally. Well, how can everyone reach out to you? Where do you hang out?
Yeah, so I'm the host of the Sweet Life podcast. So you guys can find me on iTunes or everywhere else, iHeartRadio and Spotify, Sweet Life Entrepreneur Podcast. And you guys can actually take the quiz. You can visit sweetlifepodcast.com and take the quiz there at sweetlifepodcast.com. And we actually sort the podcasts are business trainings, and they're phase-based business trainings. So all of our podcasts are actually tagged to a phase. So if you guys are really wanting to get focused, first of all, you can take the little quiz and find out what phase you're in. Then you can go to sweetlifepodcast.com and sort by phase, and it will give you all the podcast episodes and the business trainings only in the phase you're in. You'll hear me in the beginning of my podcast. I'm like, okay, this podcast episode is for phase 3. If you're not in phase 3, listen to a different episode. Don't stand here and listen to me because I will distract you. And I'm really upfront about that. I want everybody focused. So I would say sweetlifepodcast.com is the best place. And then you also can text the number to the number 31996. You can text the word Sweet Life. It's one word. That's 31996 Sweet Life, and just get a link to the quiz. You can take it on mobile too.
Awesome. And I also did talk on your podcast, so my episode is somewhere there, right?
Yes. Yep. We're all in there. And yeah, it's just such a great resource. I mean, the podcast that's my philanthropy outreach right now. I refuse to accept advertisers. And the whole goal of the podcast is to give really trusted business strategies I've been a business coach now for 21 years. And so making sure that women and men, but it's primarily us girls hanging out over there, get really trusted strategies that I don't think you guys should pay for. Everybody needs to know in order to get their business rolling and scaled.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your
Thanks for
amazing
having me.
knowledge. I mean, like, we can probably talk all day on about this subject.
I'm happy to come back anytime if you want to talk about lessons for phase 2 or 3 or whatever. There's so much drilling down we can do for sure. But thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, thank you everybody for listening in. We have amazing entrepreneurs that make 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, even 7 figures, doing amazing things, doing their master genius. And this is what my show is all about, sharing their knowledge and sharing their stories, and really helping all of us to create soul alignment lives and businesses. Right. So until next time, I'll see you guys. Have a beautiful day. Aloha.
Aloha.